The Nalarian observation ship hovered silently above Earth's atmosphere, its advanced cloaking technology ensuring no primitive radar systems could detect its presence. Senior observer Tejo stood at the viewing port, his four-fingered hand pressed against the transparent material as he studied the blue planet with fascination. "Remarkable," he murmured. "They build weapons to destroy each other, yet they also create music that could move even the most stoic Nalarian to tears." Science Officer Jaiwu approached, her data tablet displaying scrolling information about human development. "Their technological progress is accelerating faster than any species we've encountered," she said. "They've mastered basic flight in just a century after discovering electricity." Tejo nodded thoughtfully. "And their conflicts?" "Increasingly destructive," Jaiwu replied. "They've recently developed weapons that split atoms. If they continue on this path..." The unfinished thought hung in the recycled air of the observation vessel. The Nalarians had encountered many species throughout their 5,000 years of space exploration, but humans were uniquely contradictory. Their capacity for both creation and destruction exceeded anything in Nalarian records. 3 days later, the Central Nalarian Council convened in their great crystal chamber. Representatives from every colony world attended, either in person or through holographic projection. High Counselor Dohayan, his blue skin wrinkled with age and wisdom, called the meeting to order. "We face an important decision," Dohayan announced. "The humans of Earth have reached a critical stage in their development. Soon they will look beyond their world. We must decide now, do we welcome them into galactic society, or do we wait?" Counselor Minji stood, her delicate frame belying her powerful position as head of cultural integration. "I have studied their art, their literature, their philosophy," she said. "There is greatness in them. With proper guidance, they could become valuable members of our community." "You ignore their darkness," countered Counselor Byung, leader of security affairs. He activated a projection showing humans engaged in warfare. "In the past century alone, they have fought 2 global conflicts resulting in millions of deaths. No Nalarian has killed another in 8,000 years. Can we risk exposing the galaxy to such violence?" The debate continued for hours. Some counselors argued for direct intervention to help humans overcome their violent tendencies. Others suggested subtle guidance through dreams and inspiration. A few radical voices even proposed neutralizing the human threat before it could spread. As the final vote approached, Dohayan raised his hand for silence. "I propose a compromise," he said. "A quarantine. We will establish automated observation posts throughout their system. We will watch their development from a distance. If they overcome their violent nature, we can welcome them when they reach the stars on their own. If not, the galaxy remains protected." The vote passed with a narrow majority. Within months, the Nalarians deployed their observation network, satellites disguised as asteroids, monitoring stations hidden on moons and distant planets. Earth would remain isolated, unknown to its inhabitants, while the Watchers kept their silent vigil. As centuries passed, the Earth observation project became a low priority. The automated systems continued their work, sending reports that few Nalarians bothered to read. Humanity was catalogued as developing/dangerous and largely forgotten as the Nalarians expanded their peaceful civilization across the galaxy. On the 1000th anniversary of the quarantine decision, Observer Miho, the last Nalarian assigned to personally review Earth data, filed his final report before the position was eliminated due to budget constraints. "The humans continue to fight among themselves," he wrote. "They have split atoms to power their cities but also to threaten each other. They have walked on their moon but used the same technology to deliver weapons. They create beauty while destroying their own world. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, they will have found balance. Or perhaps they will have destroyed themselves. Either way, the quarantine should remain." With that, direct Nalarian oversight of Earth ended. The automated systems continued their silent watch, gathering data that accumulated in vast storage banks, unread and unanalyzed. Earth became a footnote in Nalarian educational materials, an example of a species whose promise was overshadowed by its dangers. For nearly 4,000 years, no Nalarian gave serious thought to the violent creatures evolving on the blue planet in an unremarkable spiral arm of the galaxy. The silence between the species stretched across millennia, undisturbed. Until the day the Vrex came, and the galaxy discovered it had forgotten how to fight. Admiral Sunho stared at the tactical display with growing horror. The holographic map of Concordat space glowed with red markers of Vrex expansion. 3 more systems had fallen just this week. How many casualties? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Tactical analyst Hannah checked her datapad. Complete population loss on Nilarian colony Virus 7. Approximately 20 million souls. 20 million. The number was incomprehensible. The Galactic Concordat had known peace for so long that such losses were beyond understanding. For 3,000 years, the allied species had expanded through the stars, building a civilization based on cooperation and harmony. Then the Vrex arrived. No one knew where they came from. Their ships appeared at the edge of Concordat space without warning. First contact had been disastrous. The Vrex, insectoid creatures with a hive mind consciousness, viewed all other life as either food or competition. Diplomacy was met with immediate aggression. Their adaptability is unlike anything we've seen, said Chief Scientist Woojin, joining the Admiral at the display. Our weapons cause damage in initial encounters, but by the second or third battle, the Vrex have already developed biological countermeasures. Sunho rubbed his tired eyes. The Nilarians, as the oldest and most technologically advanced species in the Concordat, were expected to lead the defense. But their society had evolved beyond warfare. Their weapons technology had stagnated as they focused on arts, philosophy, and peaceful exploration. The emergency council meeting starts in 1 hour, Hannah reminded him. The representatives from all surviving systems will be present. The central chamber of the Concordat was filled to capacity. Species from across the galaxy gathered in desperate hope for a solution. Some attended in person, others appeared as holographic projections. The mood was somber. High Counselor Yuna, who had replaced Ohian 500 years earlier, called the meeting to order. The situation is grave, she began. The Vrex have conquered 17 systems in less than a year. Our defenses continue to fail. If we cannot find a new strategy, the Concordat will fall within 5 years. Representatives offered suggestions, each more desperate than the last. Evacuation plans. Surrender terms. Even a proposal to destroy star systems rather than let them fall to the enemy. We lack the military thinking needed to defeat such an enemy, admitted Defense Minister Kwan. Our civilization has been peaceful for too long. We have forgotten how to wage war. In the archives of ancient history, far below the council chamber, junior researcher Juno scrolled through forgotten data files. For weeks, he had searched Nilarian records for any mention of species with advanced military capabilities who might help against the Vrex. Computer, show me quarantined species with warfare classification, he commanded. The system displayed a list of primitive worlds the Nilarians had discovered over millennia but deemed too dangerous for contact. Most were pre-spaceflight civilizations, useless against the current threat. Then Juno noticed a designation that made him pause: Earth, quarantine status, active, duration, 4,023 years, threat assessment, high military potential. Curious, he opened the file. The ancient reports described a violent but intelligent species with remarkable adaptability and tactical thinking. The quarantine decision noted their exceptional capacity for warfare. Juno's heart raced as he read more recent automated reports. The humans had developed spaceflight. They had colonized their solar system. And most importantly, they still maintained military forces. Without waiting for proper authorization, Juno copied the files and rushed to the council chamber. He burst through the doors, interrupting a particularly hopeless debate about resource allocation for refugee planets. High Counselor, he called out, breathless from his run. I believe I've found our answer. All eyes turned to the young researcher as he connected his data pad to the central display. Images of Earth and its people filled the massive screen. 4,000 years ago, we discovered a species so prone to violence that our ancestors quarantined their entire system, Juno explained. They were judged too dangerous for contact. But now, that very danger may be our salvation. The council chamber erupted in voices. Some expressed outrage at the suggestion of breaking such an ancient quarantine. Others saw a glimmer of hope for the first time in months. Yuna raised her hand for silence. You suggest we seek help from primitives? Not primitives, Juno corrected, displaying the latest surveillance data. They've developed interplanetary civilization. And more importantly, they understand something we've forgotten: how to fight and win against overwhelming odds. Admiral Sunho stepped forward, studying the images of human military vessels. Their designs were crude compared to Nilarian ships, but showed clear offensive purpose, something Concordat vessels lacked. The Vrex adapt to predictable patterns, he said slowly. Our logical, methodical approaches fail because the Vrex can anticipate them. But these humans, they might be unpredictable enough to confuse the hive mind. Yuna looked troubled. Breaking a quarantine of this duration is unprecedented. So is the threat we face, Sunho replied. I volunteer to lead the contact mission myself. After hours of heated debate, the council narrowly approved the plan. For the first time in 4 millennia, a Nilarian ship would deliberately approach Earth not as observers, but as suppliants seeking military aid from the dangerous humans. Captain Yunha's hands trembled slightly as she guided the Nilarian diplomatic vessel toward the edge of Earth's solar system. No member of her species had intentionally approached this forbidden zone in 4,000 years. Deactivating stealth systems, announced Navigator Minsu. We want them to see us coming. The sleek silver ship dropped its energy cloaking, becoming visible to human detection systems. Almost immediately, alerts flashed across their command console. We're being scanned by multiple sources, reported Science Officer Kyung. Their technology is more advanced than our records suggested. Yunha wasn't surprised. The automated observation posts had continued collecting data for millennia, but few Nilarians had bothered reviewing it. Humans had progressed faster than expected. Open a channel using their communication frequencies, she ordered. Let's hope they understand our translation matrix. Before they could transmit, a squadron of human military vessels appeared, seemingly from nowhere. The ships were smaller than the Nilarian vessel but bristled with weapons. Their sudden appearance shocked the Nilarian crew. Their sensors hadn't detected the approaching vessels until they decloaked. They have stealth technology, whispered Minsu in disbelief. A capability the Nilarians thought unique to their own civilization. A message came through on their communication system, audio only. Unidentified vessel, you have entered United Earth defense space. Identify yourself immediately or face defensive action. Yunha took a deep breath. This is Captain Yunha of the Galactic Concordat vessel Harmony. We come in peace seeking dialogue with Earth's leaders on a matter of urgent importance. After a tense silence, the human commander responded. Remain in position. Any movement will be considered hostile. A diplomatic team is being dispatched. 3 hours later, Yunha and her senior officers sat across from a human delegation aboard Earth's orbital command station. The humans had insisted on hosting the meeting, clearly unwilling to board an alien vessel. Their caution impressed Yunha. It showed tactical thinking the peaceful Concordat species often lacked. Admiral Kei Chen, a stern-faced woman with gray-streaked hair, led the human delegation. She studied the aliens with unconcealed suspicion. You claim to represent something called the Galactic Concordat. Yet our deep space exploration has found no evidence of alien civilization in nearby star systems. Yunha nodded. That is because we have been deliberately hiding from you. For 4,000 years, Earth has been under quarantine by order of the Nilarian Council. The statement landed like a physical blow. The human representatives exchanged alarmed glances. Quarantine? Admiral Chen's voice was dangerously quiet. You've been watching us? Yes, Yunha admitted. Our ancestors determined that humanity's violent tendencies made you potentially dangerous to galactic stability. Observation posts were established throughout your system to monitor your development without interference. A younger human diplomat slammed his fist on the table. You judged our entire species and decided to isolate us? What gave you the right? Jae-hyun, the Nilarian cultural specialist, spoke softly. Fear gave us the right. fear and arrogance. We believed ourselves more advanced, not just technologically, but morally. We were wrong. His admission surprised even Yunha. It wasn't part of their prepared diplomatic approach. If you've been hiding from us for thousands of years, said Admiral Chen, why reveal yourselves now? Yunha activated a holographic projector, displaying a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red areas showed Vrex-controlled space, expanding like a disease across one quadrant. We face extinction, she explained. The Vrex are a hive mind species that consumes all in its path. The Concordat, 57 peaceful civilizations, stands on the brink of collapse. Our weapons fail. Our defensive strategies prove ineffective. We need help. A human military advisor leaned forward. And you came to us? The supposedly dangerous species you've been avoiding? Yes, said Yunha simply. Because what we once feared about you may be exactly what saves us all. The meeting continued for hours before Admiral Chen called for recess. The human delegation departed to consult with Earth's leadership, leaving the Nilarians alone in the conference room. They hate us, whispered Min Su. I can sense their anger at the quarantine. No, corrected Jae-hyun. They are suspicious and offended, rightfully so. But hatred would have ended this conversation immediately. They're still listening. 2 days later, the Nilarian delegation was summoned to Earth's surface, a rare honor in sign of growing trust. They were escorted to the United Earth Government headquarters in New Geneva, where President Lee awaited them. The human leader was younger than Yunha expected, with keen eyes that seemed to pierce through diplomatic niceties. My military advisors tell me this Vrex threat will eventually reach Earth, whether we help you or not, President Lee said without preamble. They also tell me your technology far exceeds ours in many areas, particularly faster than light travel. That is correct, confirmed Yunha. Then I propose an alliance, said Lee. You will share your advanced technology with us. In return, we will join your fight against the Vrex. High Emissary Jae-hyun bowed his head respectfully. And the matter of the quarantine? The centuries of isolation we imposed? President Lee's expression hardened. That debt remains unpaid. But survival takes precedence over old grievances. The time for isolation is over. Humanity is ready to join the stars. Ready or not, the galaxy will have to accommodate us. General Park stood before the gathered officers, her uniform crisp despite 3 days without sleep. The command center hummed with activity as humans and Nilarians worked side by side. 6 months had passed since first contact, and the Alliance was about to face its first major test. The Vrex have taken control of the Altaris system, Park explained, pointing to the holographic display. 3 billion Concordat citizens are trapped there. Previous liberation attempts by Nilarian forces failed. Admiral Sunho nodded grimly. The Vrex adapted to our tactics after the first engagement. Our second rescue fleet was completely destroyed. Park activated a detailed projection of the Altaris system. We've studied the Vrex extensively. They operate as a collective mind, sharing information instantly across their forces. When one Vrex soldier learns something, they all learn it. This makes them incredibly efficient, added Tactical Officer Jean, but also predictable in certain ways. The human officers exchanged knowing glances. Predictability was fatal in warfare, a lesson humanity had learned through thousands of years of conflict with itself. Our advantage is this, Park continued. The Vrex have never encountered humans before. They've adapted to Concordat tactics, which prioritize minimal casualties and follow logical patterns. We don't fight that way. The next day, the first human-led battle group jumped into the Altaris system. 20 Earth warships, recently upgraded with Nilarian technology, appeared at carefully calculated positions. They were smaller than the massive Vrex high ships but moved with surprising agility. Captain Day watched from the bridge of the UES Indomitable as Vrex vessels adjusted their formation to intercept. They're responding exactly as predicted, he noted. They think we'll attack in standard Concordat formation. All ships, execute Operation Thunderstorm, he ordered. Instead of forming a defensive line as the Vrex expected, the human vessels scattered in seemingly random directions. Some accelerated toward the Vrex fleet at suicidal speeds. Others disappeared behind moons or dropped into low planetary orbits. The Vrex hive mind, accustomed to the predictable strategies of the Concordat, momentarily hesitated, confused by the chaotic movement patterns that defied tactical logic. That moment of hesitation was all the humans needed. Launching strike teams, reported Commander Hyun from the assault carrier Spectre. Her special operations teams had trained for months for this mission. Small, stealthed insertion craft shot toward the largest Vrex vessel. Inside each craft, human soldiers prepared for boarding action. A concept so foreign to the Concordat that it had never been attempted against the Vrex. Remember, Hen told her team over the calm, the Vrex communicate using chemical signals. Once we're inside, release the pheromone disruptors. The boarding was violent and chaotic. Human soldiers in powered combat suits cut their way through the organic hulls of the Vrex ships. They fought with a ferocity that shocked even their Nilarian allies watching from support vessels. The Vrex, despite their superior numbers, struggled against the unpredictable human attack patterns. Their hive-mind advantage became a weakness when the humans deployed their secret weapon, chemical compounds designed to scramble Vrex communication. The disruptors are working, reported Sergeant Mina over the tactical network. They're attacking each other in confusion. Across the system, the battle unfolded unlike any the Concordat had fought in its long history. Human ships executed maneuvers that seemed reckless, accelerating toward enemy vessels only to veer away at the last moment, creating false sensor readings, sacrificing tactical position to lure Vrex forces into traps. Aboard the Nilarian support vessel Harmony, Science Officer Kyung watched with a mixture of horror and fascination. They fight like no species I've ever observed, she told Captain Yunha. There's a chaos to their methods, yet I sense underlying strategy. Yunha nodded slowly. This is why our ancestors feared them. And why we need them now. By the battle's end, 17 Vrex ships had been destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had lost 3 vessels, a casualty rate that would have been unacceptable to Concordat commanders but that General Park had deemed within acceptable parameters. The surviving Vrex retreated, abandoning the Altaris system. For the first time since the war began, the hive mind had encountered something it couldn't immediately adapt to: human unpredictability. In the aftermath, as rescue operations began for the billions of Concordat citizens, Admiral Sunho approached General Park. Your soldiers fought with incredible intensity, he said carefully. Park's expression remained neutral. We fight to win, Admiral. Always. Some of your tactics seemed unnecessarily dangerous. In war, calculated risk is necessary. The Vrex expected you to value safety above victory. We showed them an enemy willing to risk everything. As news of the victory spread across Concordat space, many citizens viewed the humans with new eyes, not just as violent primitives, but as protectors willing to embrace danger so others wouldn't have to. On distant Vrex hive ships, the collective consciousness processed its first defeat in the war. For the first time, the Vrex experienced something new. Doubt. The Vrex mothership loomed like a dark star at the center of their home system. Around it, the remnants of the once mighty hive fleet formed a protective barrier. After 18 months of human-led offensives, the Vrex had been pushed back to their origin point. General Park studied the tactical display from the bridge of the UES Victory. The combined human Concordat fleet had the Vrex surrounded. Victory was within reach. All ships report ready for final assault, said Communications Officer Taeyang. They await your command. Park nodded, her expression solemn. This moment had been earned through sacrifice, hundreds of human lives and thousands of Concordat civilians lost in the campaign to push back the Vrex invasion. Yet she hesitated before giving the order. Open a channel to the Vrex mothership, she said instead. Her officers exchanged surprised glances. The Vrex had never responded to communication attempts before. Channel open, General, Taeyang reported. Though there's no indication they'll listen. Park stepped forward. This is General Park of the United Earth Defense Force. Your forces have been defeated. Your hive ships are surrounded. But total destruction is not inevitable. For several long moments, there was silence. Then, unexpectedly, a response came, not in words, but in chemical signatures translated by the ship's computers into an approximation of language. No surrender. Fight until end. This is way of Rex. Park smiled slightly. Fighting to the end is admirable. But consider this, survival can be victory too. We offer containment, not extinction. Your species confined to this system under monitoring, not destroyed. The concept seemed to confuse the Vrex. Their response was delayed, fragmented. Why not destroy? Winners destroy losers. This is nature. Humans understand nature differently, Park replied. Sometimes strength is shown through restraint, not destruction. Aboard the Nilarian diplomatic vessel, High Counselor Yuna watched the exchange with growing astonishment. No Concordat species would have offered terms to the Vrex after what they had done. Most would have chosen to eliminate the threat permanently. She's offering them life, Yuna whispered to Admiral Sunho. After all the death they've caused. Sunho nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps this is what we've been missing all along. The Vrex understand only absolute victory or defeat. They've never encountered the concept of mercy. The negotiations continued for 3 days. The Vrex struggled with concepts foreign to their hive mentality, coexistence, boundaries, peace. But facing extinction, even their rigid consciousness began to adapt. Eventually, terms were agreed upon. The Vrex would be contained within their home system, with Concordat monitoring stations established at every jump point. Their biological adaptation capabilities would be limited through carefully designed inhibitor fields. In return, they would live. As the fleet prepared to depart Vrex space, President Lee arrived on a diplomatic vessel to formalize the treaty. It was a historic moment. The end of the war and humanity's first official recognition as members of the galactic community. The signing ceremony took place in the Grand Hall of the Victory. Representatives from all Concordat species attended. High Counselor Yuna stood beside President Lee at the center of the assembly. 4,000 years ago, my ancestors judged humanity too dangerous for contact, Yuna said, her voice carrying through the hushed hall. We feared your capacity for violence, your unpredictable nature, your willingness to risk everything for victory. She paused, looking at the gathered human officers who had led the campaign against the Vrex. We were right to recognize those qualities, she continued. But wrong to fear them. What we saw as primitive violence was in truth something we had forgotten, the necessity of strength, the courage to fight when peace is not possible. President Lee accepted the ornate document that formalized Earth's admission to the renamed Galactic Alliance, no longer merely a concordat of peaceful species, but a union of diverse civilizations with complementary strengths. Humanity accepts this place in the stars, Lee said. We bring with us our history, both its darkness and its light. We have been warriors because we had to be. But we have always dreamed of being explorers. In the months that followed, human ships ventured farther into Alliance space. Cultural exchanges flourished. Nilarian technology accelerated human development, while human military expertise helped reshape Alliance defense strategies. On the observation deck of Nilarian Central Station, General Park stood beside junior researcher Juno, the young Nilarian who had first discovered the forgotten files on humanity. I've always wondered, Juno said hesitantly. When you had the Vrex at your mercy, why offer them terms? After all they had done, most humans wanted them destroyed. Park gazed out at the stars. Because ending a threat and annihilating a species are different things. The Vrex fought according to their nature. We fought according to ours. And what is humanity's nature? Juno asked. Complex, Park replied with a small smile. We can be killers when necessary. But we prefer to be builders. Across the galaxy, the 4,000 years of silence had ended. The species once deemed too dangerous to contact had become the Alliance's most valuable members, not despite their capacity for war, but because they balanced that capacity with an equal desire for peace.